Hello, I have perfected Everloop on Steam by collecting all 6 achievements. This includes discovering my first anomaly, reaching my destiny, completing over 100 loops through the hallway of fate, and a few more we'll touch on a bit later. Welcome to my full review. Everloop is a short, first-person puzzle horror game being developed and published by Infinity Green Games Studios, a team of which currently consists of only 4 members. Full disclosure, I was graciously sent a review copy of the game, however with that in mind, it will not alter my opinion on the title. Starting off with the main menu, I love the simplicity it provides. We even get a cute little kitty to stare at. As for the settings itself, there isn't much here. However, I love how it's neatly categorized instead of just being mushed together in one page with how little options there are. There are currently only 4 languages supported: English, Portuguese, Spanish Spain, and Spanish Latin America. The devs are based in Brazil, so it's fine, but hopefully more translations are put in eventually for non-native speakers. That being said, you can play the game perfectly fine without ever reading a thing. The keybinds are okay, as you'll only be using WASD to walk and your mouse to look around. Very normal, but you cannot rebind them. It's fine, but the option would be nice. The game allows you to traverse the main menu with your keyboard by using Q and E followed by O and P. This is unique to say the least. As for the technical side of things, please note I'm running this off a low high-end PC, so how this performs for me might not perform the same way for you. The game defaulted me with VSync on and the highest graphic quality possible. I only had one problem, and that was with screen tearing. I usually prefer to play my games with VSync off, which typically means tearing is possible. However, with VSync turned on, the game randomly forces itself to only 10 FPS. Restarting the game fixes it, however I couldn't seem to recreate it after to show you, so this might have just been a very random hiccup I encountered. Everything past that ran flawlessly and I experienced no issues. As for the difficulty, there are no difficulty options as the game comes down to how well you can spot the difference in a sometimes changing hallway. If you have a photographic memory or are decent at paying close attention to smaller details within a confined area, you won't have much of a problem. In short, the gameplay of Everloop is heavily inspired by the Exit 8. Very simple, you are trapped in an endless hallway where you must observe your surroundings carefully to catch anomalies and reach your destiny, also known as the Exit. You'll start the game being thrown into the hallway with no threats. This provides you a simple practice room to familiarize yourself with its layout. You will eventually reach this shrine-like table with a poster explaining the core concept. Stay alert to anomalies. If you encounter one, go backwards. If you don't, continue forwards. And every lit candle is a step towards our destiny. Now this is our safety table. Nothing can hurt us here, and this is where we'll always make our way back to, no matter if we're right or wrong. As you progress, you may or may not encounter anomalies, but every correct guess will push you forward by lighting that level's previous candle. If you are wrong once, you lose all your progress and are sent back to the very start. Like I said, it's very simple, and that is pretty much the entire game. Now before I mention anything remotely negative, I want to point out I have never played an Exit 8-like game before, so this entire concept is all new to me. I have only seen other creators play them, but I've never went out of my way to try one myself until now. Everloop provided me the perfect opportunity to give one a go and even voice my opinion on it. I'm glad they reached out, as I now understand the appeal and why devs are so inspired to create others just like its spiritual successor. The concept is so simple, yet can have a lot to offer. Throw a few scares in the mix and you have a wonderfully unique horror experience. I hate to admit it, but I did jump. Holy fuck. All in all, I had a fun time playing through, and there are a lot of ways I can see this concept eventually being twisted into bigger and better things. Now there are a few things I didn't like, however, take these with a grain of salt. Our end goal is to light every candle by voting correctly technically 8 times in a row. I say technically because there are only 8 candles shown. You have to guess correctly 9 times, and the 10th will be our destiny. This bothered me. You show and tell me lighting 8 will be my destiny. I do it, you throw me into a final test, this is now 9, which I could fail, but getting it correct throws me into the ending cutscene, making it the 10th if we were to count it. I felt so crazy thinking about this, I had to dig deeper to understand why. I found out the Exit 8 does the exact same thing. This is because the first completed level is being counted as 0 instead of 1. I don't like this concept for the sole fact that it hurts my brain and doesn't make sense to me. So I will still say it, I think you're missing a candle. Anyway, the way progression works is interesting. You progress by correctly distinguishing anomalies and walking backwards or forwards to confirm your answer. This will trigger a pop-up notifying you of the anomaly's name you just guessed correctly, allowing it to be added into to the anomaly codex. From now until you confirm all 30 anomalies, you will never see the same one twice. They may be random at first, but only up until the very last one. It will forever be the one you're missing, mixed with empty rooms until you figure it out, or cheat your way through it. Now this system is perfectly fine for the casual player, as most won't even notice it. It allows you to slowly progress through at your own pace and understand every anomaly you're finding prior to having them randomized and possibly repeating. Once I noticed how the system was working, it did leave a bad taste for me. Mostly because I assumed this style of game would always be RNG based, and honestly I would prefer it that way. Providing a game length handheld tutorial is fine, but it could have been a much smoother transition or avoided altogether with perhaps a second game mode called Endless, allowing the player to choose their own destiny. This ruined it for me, as I don't see a point replaying through the hallways once I've suffered to find all the minute details we're looking for, as at that point it would just be too easy. Replaying seems pointless unless I'm allowing someone else to experience it for the first time. However, let's move on to the world of Everloop. What drew me most of this game was its visual style. I've noticed a lot of similar titles take a more subway approach, which typically is what doesn't pique my interest in a horror type of way. But Everloop takes a more unique approach, putting you inside what feels like an abandoned religious grandmother's house, making it prime for spooky anomalies to be placed about. They absolutely nailed the world and the anomaly side of things. I do wish there were more to find, but I don't have a real complaint here. Moving into the audio, there isn't much here. Surprisingly enough, the entire game is all ambience with no music. The most you'll hear is the fans above your head or the broken record player in the middle of the hallway. I think they did a good job providing the immersion this way, as less audio lets you focus on the environment within. So if the audio ever somehow, let's say, stops, you know something is wrong. My only complaint about the audio all comes down to this cat. It doesn't breathe, doesn't meow, and while it sits here on the main menu and licks itself, there's no audio attached to it. Don't worry, I got you covered. It felt very out of place to have little to no sound on the only creature consistently walking the halls with you. Hey, you've made it to the story section and my thoughts on it. I won't be covering the spoilers in depth, but if you would like to avoid them, skip ahead to the positive and negative section below. Ready? Okay. The main menu actually provides most of the story you'll need. You're going to encounter anomalies and hope to light every candle, stepping closer to your destiny. The deeper lore can be found within the anomaly codex. This is where every anomaly you guess correctly will be stored. There are a total of 30 anomalies to find, all with their own paragraph attached to them. You can pause the video to read through some of these yourself, but most of them seem to provide more questions than answers. The small text below gives you a brief description of what you should be looking for in-game, assuming you weren't paying attention and guessed it correctly on accident. The walls of text are filled with deeper or darker thoughts on that specific anomaly. A good example and my favorite one is the silent phonograph, as it reads, "What causes a machine to quiet itself against its very nature? Perhaps in this moment of stillness, there's an opportunity to listen more closely, not to the sounds of the world, but the internal voices we often ignore. The silence invites introspection, a dive into the depths of our being, where answers do not require words to be understood. In this soundless space, we are reminded that sometimes, in the most complete silence, we can find the most resonant truths." From what I could grab, the story comes down to each anomaly within the halls having its own backstory. When we encounter them, they provide us a story full of questions. We then have to guess what the answers may be, all while continuing moving forward in search of our own destiny. I think it's a nice touch and fairly unique to include a deeper meaning into the objects or anomalies you find within, but there isn't much storytelling past that. That being said, if you dislike reading notes, you can avoid them all and still play perfectly fine. As mentioned before, there are a total of 6 achievements, all of which took me 1.5 hours to obtain. I usually do not mention the ones handed to you just by playing, however, all but one are obtained this way. So we're going to start with Eternal Traveler, which is obtained by completing 100 loops through the hallways of fate. Very simple, keep guessing your way through and you'll eventually get it. Guardians of Mysteries is obtained after revealing all 30 anomalies. Also simple, just correctly guess your first 30 encounters. This can be cheesed, but I see no point in doing so. The hardest achievement award will be going to Scholar of the Beyond, which is where we must read all the entries in the Anomaly Codex. The hardest part of this one is knowing this is an achievement to obtain in the first place. It actually goes hand in hand with the Guardians of Mysteries, as once you've revealed all 30, you just have to go into the main menu, into the Anomaly Codex, and click through them all. Now while these achievements are very quick to obtain, some might like that, I do not. As mentioned before, I think having this style of game drawn out by making it completely random would have made these achievements a lot more fun to obtain. Would they come down to pure luck? Absolutely. But I see this genre more as a roguelike than a PT, but if I'm wrong, you can let me know. Now I think there's an untapped market for really unique and difficult achievements for this style of game. The amount of references, Easter eggs, rare encounters, and story you could make up are literally endless. I would love to see that utilized in this type of experience. I can still give credit where credit is due, as Everloop has made more achievements than most of its competition, and they're actually pretty decent, aside from my want for the randomness. Now let's go over some of the positives. Everloop is aesthetically gorgeous and provides an eerie at-home feeling the entire time you're playing. It can provide a lot of deeper thinking in and out of the game. It's simple to where anyone can hop on, quickly understand the concept, and maybe even get a psychological spook. As for the negatives, it's short. This can be a positive depending how you feel about it, but I wish the entire experience was just a little bit long. Once the novelty wears off, it can become very tedious, as you'll be spending several minutes analyzing your surroundings only to find out your guess was wrong and just missed an extremely subtle detail, only to repeat this process over and over and over again. In conclusion, Everloop is a walking simulator inspired by the Exit 8, however, taking a more surreal religious theme and providing lore attached to the anomalies you find within the halls. It is a short game, but surprisingly, it was fun to finish. If you're an avid fan of this genre, I think this is a good one to keep an eye on or to add to your collection. I recommend wishlisting the game and waiting for a sale if you can't justify the $5. However, that will conclude my Everloop review. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. Let me know what you thought down below, or what game I should complete next. A huge thanks to the creative director at Infinity Green Games for providing me an opportunity to play and review your game. I hope I've provided something of value. All links you'd ever need are in the description below. I apologize for the raspy voice, but most importantly, until next time, take care.